Alright then, so there's one more topic that I want to discuss before we move on to the next section, computed properties. Now, I think sometimes there's a little confusion as to what computed properties are and when we use them. So I'm going to give you a good example in this video. But first of all, what are computed properties? Well, computed properties give us a way to take the data on our component right here and do something with it, like filter out certain parts of it or change it in some way, shape or form. Then we can take that altered data and display it in the template. And all the time, the raw data here in the data object, that will remain unchanged, untouched, because we don't want to permanently change our data here. We just want to perhaps change the way we output it in certain areas. So to demo this, we'll be making a little search box, which will sit at the top of our page over here. Then when we type something into this box, we'll scan through the posts data down here and find any post with that value that's in the search box in its title. If it does have that value in its title, it's still going to display those on the page. If it doesn't, then what we'll do is we'll filter out those posts and they won't show on the page, we'll hide them. So we're changing the way that we're outputting our data here. We're not changing the data itself, i.e. we're not going to go in and directly delete the blogs from this data property over here. That would be just destructive to our data. We're just altering how our data is output. So this is what computed properties are all about. So first of all, let's create a search box up here, input. And this is of type text. We'll also attach a V model to this, so we can sync it up to one of our things down here. And this V model is going to be equal to search term. So we need to make that first of all down here, search term. So now as we type into this, and we'll set it equal to an empty string to begin with. As we type into this input field right here, it's going to take the value of that and update it after every keystroke to this thing right here to keep them in sync, right? So now we have our search term stored inside this data property. The next thing we want to do is create our computed property. We want to alter the way our posts are output based on this search term. Now, we store all of our computed properties in a property here called computed. This is an object, place a comma after that, remember? And then inside we can have our different computed properties. Now, I want to make a computed property called filtered posts, which is going to filter through the posts and remove anything that's not searched for. So every time we find a post where the search term is not in the title, we're going to filter that post out of the data collection, right? So we don't show it on the page. Okay, so how are we going to do this exactly? Well, this is a function, this filtered posts. And this function is going to return something. It's going to return that updated data. So we want to take this .posts, which is the actual data here with all the posts in it after we've made this request. Then what we'll do is we'll filter through those posts. Remember, what filter does is go through each of the items in the array and it filters certain things out of it based on whether we return a true or false value. If we return true, then it stays in the array. If we return false, then that item is filtered out of the array. So we'll take each individual post as it comes through and filters through this array. And then inside this arrow function, what we'll do is return either true or false. We want to return true if there's a match. If the post.title.match this.search term. Okay, so what this match function does right here is look at this thing, the value of the post title, and it tries to match it against this thing right here, the search term. So what the users typed into the input box. So if whatever the users typed in here can be found inside the post.title, then this function right here returns true. So since we're returning true, it's going to remain inside the array. We're not going to filter it out. If it can't find this search term inside the title, then this function is going to return false and we're going to filter it out of the array. So then we won't show that on the page. Okay, so now we've created this computed property, but at the minute it's not going to do anything. If we start typing in here, then it's not going to filter anything through. And that's because we're still just outputting the posts. We're going through the posts here. And remember, we're not directly editing or changing this thing right here. All that we're doing is creating this computed property, this function, which goes through them and filters things out. But we're not calling this computed property anywhere. We're not using it. So what we'll do is, instead of going through posts here, we'll go through filtered posts. And what that will do is look at this thing right here and say, okay, I can find filtered posts on your computed object right here. So I'm going to output whatever is returned from this function instead of this. So it's going to cycle through this updated array of posts rather than this array of posts. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's save this now and try this out. So obviously Ninja is in none of the blog posts, but if I start to type in EUM, then we get everything with EUM in the post title. We can see it there, we can see it here, we can see it here. Let's try something different. We'll say Optio, and now we get everything with Optio in the title. Cool, right? So there's a very basic, simple kind of filtered posts computed property to search through the posts and only display those that match this value right here.